Buddhist stories and teachings on finding peace within, there is a particular kind of tired that has nothing to do with how far you have traveled. It lives in the chest, mostly, or somewhere behind the sternum, a hollow that has been there so long you have stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing the hum of a refrigerator, present in every moment of quiet audible only when you stop moving long enough to hear it. A feeling that something is not quite where it should be, that some essential piece of you is elsewhere, misplaced perhaps, or waiting somewhere you have not yet thought to look, and so the searching begins. Most of us have done this searching without knowing we were doing it. We have moved toward new circumstances, hoping the newness would settle the hollow. New work, new places, new relationships, new practices. We have read the right books and sat in the right rooms and found the right teachers and followed the right paths. We have meditated and journaled and walked and prayed and gone on retreats and returned from retreats. And for a while, for a good while, sometimes things have felt better, and then the hollow is back. For thousands of years, Buddhist teachers have sat with students who arrived with this exact fatigue, the fatigue of the seeker, the particular and exhaustion of someone who has been looking sincerely and devotedly in all the right places, and who has not yet found what they were looking for, because what they were looking for is not in the places they have been looking. It is not in the next teacher, not in the better practice, not in the retreat that lasts longer, or the tradition that goes deeper, or the teacher who, this time, might finally say the thing that resolves it. The teachers who have sat with this fatigue long enough have all eventually said the same thing, with great kindness, with the patience of people who themselves arrived at this understanding only after a long journey. The lantern, they said, is already lit. Not will be lit. Not could be lit under the right conditions. Already. The light you have been searching for in every outward direction has been burning in the very center of you since before the searching began. It was there before the first teacher. It will be there after the last retreat. It has never, for a single moment, gone out. Tonight, we will sit with 5 old stories about this, about people who traveled great distances and looked in many directions and arrived, finally, at the most ordinary place and found there what all the journeying had been for. Come, let us begin. Welcome to all of you who are here tonight, whether you found this place through a search of your own, looking, as we all do, for something, or whether you have been here before and returned because returning felt right. We are glad you are with us. There is no further preparation needed. Whatever you were doing before this moment, you can set it down. Whatever searching brought you here has already done its work. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. Perhaps you are in bed, the covers already pulled to your chin, the room exactly the temperature it should be. Perhaps you are somewhere else entirely, a chair, a floor, a room with a window. Wherever you are, that place is the right place. The lantern travels with you. It always has. There is an old story, so old it appears in one form or another, in nearly every wisdom tradition that has thought carefully about the human heart, about a man who searches his entire house for a lamp. He looks in every room. He checks the shelves and the corners and the spaces behind furniture. He goes outside and searches the yard, in case the lamp has somehow found its way there. He asks his neighbors. He walks to the market. He speaks to strangers. He travels to the next village and the one after that, asking everyone he meets if they have seen it. He searches for years. One evening, exhausted and nearly hopeless, he returns home and sits down heavily in his chair. The chair is old. It knows him. He sits, and in the sitting, he notices, as he has not noticed in years of searching, the warmth on his face. He looks up. The lamp is on the table, where it has always been, where it was when he first noticed it was missing, where it has remained, burning steadily through all the years of the search. He has been living in its light the entire time. Buddhist teachers tell this story not as a parable about forgetfulness or foolishness. They tell it as a parable about the nature of the search itself. Because the searching, sincere, devoted, sometimes urgent, has a peculiar quality. It assumes that what is being sought is somewhere other than here, and that assumption, however reasonable it feels, is precisely what makes the finding impossible. You cannot find, by looking outward, something that has never been outside. The hollow in the chest, the teachers say, is not evidence that something is missing. It is evidence that something has been covered by the noise of the day and the demands of the world, and the habitual reaching toward the next thing, by the very activity of searching, which, necessary and beautiful and human as it is, asks us to be here while looking there. Tonight's stories are about 5 different people who searched. A monk who ran through darkness, bringing light to everyone around him. A pilgrim who walked for years toward a sacred mountain. A woman who climbed high enough to find a teacher and met someone she had not expected. A student who visited every wise person on the continent. A family who searched their whole village for light on a cold night. Each of them found the same thing, not by arriving somewhere new, by stopping and looking at what had never left. Let us begin. Let us explore a story about a monk who spent many years bringing light to others and found his own in the one place he had not thought to look. His name was Brother Kiran, and he had come to the monastery at 23 with the kind of specific intention that sometimes arrives in the young, the intention to be useful, not in the ordinary ways of the world, which he had observed and found insufficient, but useful in the deeper sense, in the sense he could not quite name, but could feel with great clarity. He wanted to be the kind of person who helped other people find their way in the dark. He was, from the beginning, very good at this. He had an instinct for the moment when someone near him was struggling, not the dramatic moments which anyone could see, but the quieter ones. The slight tension around a younger monk's eyes that meant something was wrong beneath the surface. The way a person held their bowl at meals when they were carrying something heavy. The quality of silence at the evening sessions that differed. to Kiran's particular ear, between the silence of peace and the silence of something unresolved. When he noticed these things, he acted. He found the struggling monk and sat with him. He brought extra food to the person who had not eaten well. He asked, with the careful lightness of someone who has learned not to press, whether everything was all right, and stayed for the answer, regardless of how long the answer took to arrive. He was, in the language of the other monks, a light to everyone around him. He was also, though he did not discuss this and was only dimly aware of it himself, running. Not from anything specific, nothing so clear as that, but there was in his helpfulness, and he might have seen this, if he had looked, a quality of motion, of being needed and going to where the need was, and returning from that and going to the next place, of finding meaning in the movement from one person's difficulty to the next, in the being required, in the lamp he carried being the thing that made him visible in the dark. He was 37 when the abbot called him in. The abbot was a small, quiet woman who had been at the monastery for 50 years and who had, in those 50 years, developed the kind of economy that comes from having said the important things many times and learned that fewer words serve better than more. She looked at him for a moment without speaking, which was her way of beginning. "How are you?" she asked. "Well," he said, "I've been..." He began to describe what he had been doing. The young monk in the South Hall who had been homesick, the meditation sessions he had been helping to lead, the texts he had been copying for the library. The abbot raised one hand gently, not stopping him, just slowing. "How are you?" she asked again. Kiran stopped. The question, the second time, had a different quality. It was not asking about what he had been doing. It was asking something else, and the something else was harder to answer, because it required him to look somewhere he had not recently looked. How was he? He sat with the question. The abbot waited, because she always waited, because she had found that what came in the waiting was almost always more useful than what came immediately. "I don't know," he said finally, and felt in saying it a slight surprise. Not at the not knowing. He had not known many things in his years at the monastery, but at the realization that he had not recently asked. The abbot nodded. "When you bring a lamp to someone in the dark," she said, "where does your lamp come from?" From, he thought about this, from the central lamp in the main hall. "I light mine from that one." "Yes," she said. "And when did you last go to the central lamp for your own purposes? Not to take light to carry to someone else, to simply sit beside the flame." Kiran thought about this. He could not immediately remember. There had always been someone who needed the light more urgently. There had always been somewhere it needed to go. "I'm not sure," he said. The abbot looked at him with the expression she wore when she was about to say something she had been waiting for someone to be ready to hear. "The light you carry," she said, "does not come only from the central lamp in the hall. It comes from the lamp inside you, and that lamp," she paused, "requires tending." She said nothing more. She waited, and Kiran, who had spent 14 years noticing when other people were not quite all right, sat in the silence and began, very slowly, to notice that he himself was one of them, not broken, not lost, not even unhappy exactly, but thin in a way he had not noticed, depleted in the specific way of someone who has been giving from a flame without returning to it, who has carried light so continuously and so devotedly and with such genuine care for the people who needed it that he had forgotten, or perhaps never fully learned, to sit beside his own. He began going to the main hall alone in the early mornings before anyone else arrived, not to meditate particularly, not with any specific intention, only to sit beside the lamp. The central lamp of this monastery was a simple thing, a clay bowl of oil with a cotton wick, nothing remarkable, the kind of lamp that exists in working monasteries because it is practical and reliable rather than because it is beautiful. It had burned, the older monks said, without interruption for more than a century. Kiran sat beside it in the mornings. The first few mornings he was restless. His mind went to the things that needed doing, the people who might need him. He sat through the restlessness, as the abbot had implicitly suggested, without acting on it. And then, after some time, he could not have said how many mornings it took. Something shifted. He began to feel it. The warmth of the lamp, literal and present and very close. The way the flame moved in the small air currents of the hall, not violently, never extinguishing, but responsive, alive in the particular way that fire is alive. The way the hall looked in the lamp's light, which was different from how it looked in daylight. Softer, more itself. The stone walls revealing textures that the harsher light of day flattened out. He sat and was warm. And one morning, several weeks into this practice, he noticed something he had not expected to notice, which was this. The warmth he felt in the hall, sitting beside the lamp, was not entirely coming from the lamp. Some of it was. The physical warmth was the flames. But the other warmth, the warmth in his chest, the quality of being present in a way that was different from his usual movement through the day, that was something else, that had not traveled from the clay bowl across the space between them and entered him. It had somehow always been there. He went to the abbot the following week. "I think I understand," he said, "what you meant." She waited. "The lamp inside," he said slowly, choosing words for something that resisted them. It was already there. I was carrying light from the central lamp to other people, and I thought the light came from out here, from the hall, from the flame, from the monastery. But that was only a reminder. The other light was already in me. I had just not sat beside it. The abbot looked at him. "Yes," she said. "I should have sat beside it sooner," he said. The abbot shook her head very slightly. "You sat beside other people's lamps when they needed someone. That was not wrong. It was necessary. It was generous. But," she looked at him, "the light you gave them was always yours. It was never borrowed. You only thought it was." Brother Kiran returned to his work. He continued to notice when the monks around him were struggling. He continued to bring what he could to those moments. But he went to the main hall in the mornings, and he sat beside the lamp, and he did not feel in the sitting that he was being unproductive or withholding anything from anyone. He felt, in the sitting, that he was finally learning something that had been waiting a long time to be learned. The lantern was already lit. It had always been lit. Let us pause here for a moment. Who have you been carrying light for? And when did you last turn toward the flame in your self, not to take from it and give it somewhere else, but simply to sit beside it, to let it warm you the way you let other things warm others? The light is there. It has been there. It was there before the first person you brought it to, and it is there now. When you are ready, we will continue together. Let us explore a story about a woman who walked toward a sacred mountain for 11 years and what happened when she finally stopped walking. Her name was Priya, and she had been a pilgrim since the age of 30, which, by the time this story takes place, was 11 years ago. She had not always been a pilgrim. Before she was a pilgrim, she had been, in the ordinary way of people who have not yet found their particular path, a series of things: a student, then a teacher of young children, then a wife, and then, when the marriage ended quietly and without malice, after 7 years of two people discovering that they had grown in different directions, simply herself again. Simply Priya, in a small apartment, with work she was good at and friends she valued, and a life that was, by any reasonable measure, sufficient. The hollow had been there even so. Perhaps it had always been there. She had not noticed it when she was young, or perhaps she had noticed it and given it different names: ambition, curiosity, the ordinary restlessness of someone who has not yet found her place. But in the quiet, after the marriage ended, in the evenings of the small apartment, she felt it clearly for the first time as itself. Not restlessness, not ambition, something older and quieter and more specific. She had read about the mountain the way people often read about such things. In a book borrowed from someone, in a chapter that was not the chapter she had intended to read. The mountain was sacred to several traditions and had been walked by pilgrims for many centuries. The path to it was long, and the walk was considered, in some traditions, as important as the arrival. People came back changed. Priya had gone. The first pilgrimage had taken 9 weeks and had been, in many ways, the most significant experience of her adult life. The hollow had, for those weeks of walking, been quiet. She stood at the base of the mountain on the final day and felt something she could only describe as arrived. She came home. The hollow returned within a month. She went back. By the time this story takes place, Priya had made the pilgrimage 11 times over 11 years. She had worn through many pairs of shoes and become, among the pilgrim community, something of a known figure. Other pilgrims sought her out at rest stops to ask for advice. She gave it freely. On her 11th pilgrimage, something different happened. She had been walking for 4 days at a good pace through the lower valley section of the route that she knew well. The morning of the 4th day was overcast. The clouds, the particular shade of grey that suggests neither rain nor clearing, but a sustained, settled middle state. The path was dry and well marked. She sat down beside the path to rest. This was not unusual. She sat to rest regularly, always had. But this rest was different in a way that she noticed only in retrospect, which was that she sat down and did not feel, in the sitting, the pull to continue. She sat, and the path continued ahead of her, and she looked at it, and she did not feel moved to stand. She had never, in 11 years of pilgrimage, felt this. She sat for what might have been an hour. Other pilgrims passed, some of whom recognized her and greeted her. She greeted them back. She did not stand. The clouds did not break. The path did not change. The mountain, somewhere ahead and not yet visible from this low point in the valley, continued to exist in whatever way mountains exist when no one is walking toward them. And Priya sat and was very still and felt, for the first time in 11 years of walking, something she had only felt previously at the end of the walk, the arrival. Here, 4 days in, on a grey morning, sitting on the side of a path she had walked 11 times, looking at nothing remarkable, arrived. She sat with this for a long time. She tried to understand it, then stopped trying to understand it. She let it be what it was, which required some effort, because it was not what she had expected it to be, and it was occurring in the wrong place. The arrival was supposed to happen at the mountain. That was the structure of the thing. And yet, she thought about the 11 years, the 11 arrivals at the mountain's base, each real, each genuinely felt, the return of the hollow after each one, the sense always that the walk was what made the arrival possible. What if, she thought, carefully as someone handles something fragile, what if the mountain had not been where the thing was? What if the mountain had been where she went to be reminded that the thing was in her, and the walk had been the process of quieting everything else enough to feel it, and the arrival had been the feeling of it, available to her for those moments at the base of the mountain, not because the mountain had given it, but because, by then, she had walked herself quiet, enough to notice what had been present all along. She was not certain this was right. She was not certain of very much in that moment, except the stillness. She made herself a simple lunch from what she carried. She drank from the water she had filled that morning. She watched the grey clouds move slowly eastward. In the afternoon, she began walking again, but the walk felt different from that day forward. Not better or worse. Different in the specific way of something that is no longer carrying the full weight of a very large need. She still walked toward the mountain. She still arrived. She still felt, at the base of it, the clarity that had always been there. But she knew now, with the particular quality of knowing that does not come from thinking, but from sitting on the side of a path on a grey morning, that the mountain was not the source. She was. The mountain was only where she had learned 11 times to remember. Let us pause here for a moment. What have you been walking toward? What mountain, what arrival, what set of circumstances do you believe will finally make the hollow quiet? And what might it feel like to stop right now in the middle of the walking? Not to give up, not to turn back, only to stop and sit with what is actually here. The arrival is not at the end of the path. When you are ready, we will continue together. Let us explore a story about a woman who climbed a mountain to find a wise woman, and what she found when she got there. Her name was Su Yeon, and she was 44 years old, and she was, as she would have said if asked, in a difficult passage. Not the kind of difficult that announces itself with a crisis. No single loss, no dramatic change, nothing that could be pointed to and named as the reason. It was the other kind, the kind that accumulates gradually and without drama, the way a room fills with light as dawn comes on. Not in a single moment of switching on, but in a slow brightening that you notice only when you look up from whatever you were doing and find that the room is no longer the same room it was. She had accumulated, by 44, a great many things that were good. Work she believed in, friendships that had lasted, a son who was 15 and who was, in the particular way of 15-year-olds, both a mystery and a source of unexpected illumination. A life that would have struck an observer as full and meaningful and well-tended. And yet she felt, in the private hours, uncertain in a way she could not articulate. Uncertain, not about the circumstances of her life, but about something more interior. About the center, about whether what she thought she was what she actually was, and whether what she wanted was what she actually wanted, and whether the person who had assembled all this goodness and held it together was someone she recognized from the inside. She had heard about a wise woman who lived in the mountains to the north. She heard about her the way people hear about such things. Through the network of people who know people, the specific circuit of recommendations that routes wisdom from person to person until it arrives, slightly worn from the handling, at the person who needs it. The wise woman was old. She was not a formal teacher and did not have students in the conventional sense. She saw visitors when she felt moved to, which was not always. She was, by all accounts, the real thing. Su Yeon made the arrangements. The journey to the mountains took 3 days. The final section was on foot, a 4-hour walk on a steep path through pine forest that opened near the summit ridge into a kind of plateau that held a small lake and a low stone dwelling that could only be described as deliberately simple. She arrived in the late afternoon, breathing harder than she would have liked. A young woman tending a small garden near the dwelling looked up and told her the wise woman was by the lake. Su Yeon walked to the lake. It was a very still lake, the kind of still that comes from elevation and being sheltered on 3 sides by the slope of the mountain which blocked the wind. The surface was, in the late afternoon light, so perfectly moving that it served as a mirror, the sky and its clouds and the pine trees on the far bank, all duplicated in the water with an accuracy that made the looking slightly vertiginous. There was no one by the lake. Su Yeon walked the perimeter. The lake was not large, and the walking of it took only a few minutes. She found no one. She returned to the point where she had entered and stood at the edge and looked out. She saw herself, or rather, she saw her reflection, which is an ordinary thing, to see one's reflection in a still lake, and yet she stood there looking at it for an unusual length of time. A lake shows you something else from a mirror, slightly softer, slightly more subject to the mood of the light and the stillness of the water and the particular angle at which you are standing. A lake reflection is yourself, and also a version of yourself that the world has filtered and held and given back in a different form. She looked at the reflection for a long time. Then she went back to the dwelling and found the young woman still in the garden. "I could not find the wise woman," Su-yeon said. "She wasn't by the lake." The young woman looked at her. "Were you looking at the lake?" she asked. "Yes," Su-yeon said. "And what did you see?" "The reflection," Su-yeon said. "The sky, the trees, and," she stopped, "myself." The young woman nodded. The wise woman by the lake is not someone who stands there and speaks to visitors. She is the practice of the lake itself. She paused. "Did you see anything in looking?" Su-yeon thought about this. She had seen her reflection. She had seen it for a long time, more than she would normally stand and look at her own face. And in the looking, something had happened that she had not registered as a thing happening. Only now, being asked to account for it, did it surface. She had recognized herself. Not in the way you recognize yourself in a mirror, which is habitual and quick and requires no particular attention, but in the way you recognize something that you have been searching for, with a small involuntary arrival, a slight internal shift, the feeling of having looked in many directions and suddenly finding the thing exactly where you are standing. She had recognized herself, not the circumstances, not the work or the sun or the accumulated goodness of the carefully tended life, the self before all of that. The person who was present before the assembling of everything, who would be present after it too, who was present now, reflected in a still lake on a mountain at the end of a 3-day journey. "I think," she said slowly, to the young woman in the garden, "that I have been searching for something that was me." The young woman smiled. It was a smile that contained no surprise at all. The lake has been the teacher here for as long as anyone can remember. It teaches differently to each person, but the teaching is always the same. She looked at Su-yeon. What you were looking for was always looking back. Su-yeon walked back down the mountain the following morning. She was not certain on the way home that she was different. The uncertainty she had carried to the mountain was still in some form with her, but something had happened at the lake that she carried with her on the journey back, a quality of recognition, the face in the water, the slightly vertiginous feeling of having looked for something and found it looking back. The wandering heart, she thought, and did not know where the phrase came from, only that it arrived, comes home, not to a place, to itself. Let us pause here for a moment. When did you last look at yourself? Not at the circumstances, not at the accumulated goodness or the managed difficulty, but at yourself, the one who was present before all of it and will be present after, with the quality of attention you give to something you have been looking for. It is looking back. When you are ready, we will continue together. Let us explore a story about a man who visited every wise person he could find, and what the last one told him. His name was Rio, and he had been a student for most of his adult life, not in the institutional sense, not enrolled in courses or pursuing credentials. He was a student in the older sense, a person who, having become convinced that there was something important to understand, organized his life around the understanding of it. He was 30 when the question arrived clearly enough to be acted upon. It was not a dramatic question. It arrived on an ordinary Tuesday, in the middle of an ordinary lunch, when he was sitting alone at a table near a window, and the light was coming through the glass at a particular angle that made the dust visible in the air, the constant, invisible, floating particulate of every room. And something about seeing this dust made him aware of how much was ordinarily invisible. And he thought, "There is something I do not know how to see." He finished his lunch. He washed the bowl. He sat down and wrote the question, "What is the thing I do not know how to see?" For the next 15 years he traveled. He traveled to the teachers his friends recommended, and then to the teachers those teachers recommended. He sat in formal teaching halls and in informal gardens and in the kitchens of people who had been cooking and teaching simultaneously for so long that the two activities had become indistinguishable. He read what was assigned and practiced what was suggested. He meditated in the styles of 8 different traditions. He kept journals that filled shelves. He was, wherever he went, regarded as an exceptional student. He also, wherever he went, eventually felt, after the initial period of learning, which was always genuine and often remarkable, the return of the original question, not answered, not dissolving with the teaching, still there, patient as a stone. By 45, he had traveled so widely in this pursuit that he had run, more or less, out of teachers. There was one he had not visited. He had heard about her almost from the beginning of his travels, and had, for reasons he was never entirely clear about, not gone. An old woman in a small village in the Western Hills, not particularly famous, not the head of any school or tradition. She was described as someone who, when you spoke with her, had a quality of listening so complete that people sometimes, in the act of being heard themselves. He went. The village was small. The house was smaller. The woman was very old. Old in the way that a face becomes when it has spent decades in weather and expression, lined and particular, and more itself than most faces ever get to be. She offered him tea. He accepted. They sat at a small table near a window. "Tell me your question," she said. He told her. The 15 years, the teachers, the journals, the 8 traditions, the original Tuesday with the light through the window and the dust in the air. She listened. She did not take notes. She did not nod in the way that conveys processing. She simply listened with the quality he had been told about, which was different from the other kinds of listening he had encountered, as though she were actually in the room with him in a way that other listeners, however good, had not quite managed. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What did the dust look like in the window on that Tuesday?" He was surprised. He had mentioned it in passing as the occasion for the question, not as the content of it. He thought. "Floating," he said, "lit up by the light, very small, moving in patterns I couldn't follow, nothing causing them that I could see, just constant small movement. Did you know the dust was there before you saw it? No. And when you saw it, was it new? Or had it always been there? It had always been there, he said slowly. I just hadn't been able to see it before the light hit it at that angle. She nodded. She drank her tea. The thing you have been looking for, she said, is like the dust. It has always been there. It is present in every room you have ever been in every teacher's hall, and every meditation session, and every conversation you have had in 15 years of traveling. You have been in its presence continuously since before the traveling began. She paused. What you have been learning in all your traveling is not how to find it. It cannot be found because it is not lost. What you have been learning is how to adjust the light, how to sit in a particular quality of attention that allows you to see what was always there. Rio held his cup. The tea was cooling. Then the traveling, he said. The traveling was necessary, she said, without hesitation. Not because the answer was at any of the places you went, but because the traveling was how you learned to look. Each teacher adjusted the light a little. Each tradition showed you a different angle. You needed all of it, not to find the thing, but to develop the capacity to see the thing that was already present. She looked at him, and now he thought about the dust in the window, the way it had been there all along, invisible, moving in patterns too small and complex to follow, and then, in one particular angle of light, suddenly present, not new, not arrived from elsewhere, only visible for the first time to eyes that had not previously been aimed in the right direction. Now I go home, he said. It was not a question. It arrived in him as a conclusion, the way conclusions arrive when they are actual conclusions rather than decisions, already formed before you say them. Yes, the old woman said. He went home. He had not been home in any extended sense for 15 years. He unpacked what little he had brought. He went to the window. It was morning. The light came through the glass at an angle that was different from the Tuesday 15 years ago. Different time of year, different hour, and the dust in the air was not lit up in the same way. He sat beside the window and waited. After some time, the angle of the light shifted as the sun moved and the dust appeared. Exactly as it had that Tuesday 15 years ago, the invisible particulate of the room suddenly visible, floating in patterns too complex to follow, present in the air all along. He sat and looked at it for a long time, and in the looking, he felt something that he had felt in the best moments of 15 years of traveling. The same quality, the same register, the same sense of being in the presence of something true, but without the traveling, here, in his apartment, in the morning light, the thing he had been looking for. It had been in this room the entire time. Let us pause here for a moment. All the traveling you have done, the books, the practices, the conversations, the searching, none of it was wasted. It was the adjusting of the light, the developing of a way of seeing, and what it was developing the capacity to see has been here all along, in this room, in this moment, in the particular quality of attention you bring to a still night when the day has finally ended. When you are ready, we will continue together. Let us explore a story about a family who searched their entire village for light and came home to find it on the table where it had always been. This story takes place in a very small village in the high country. The kind of village that exists in a particular relationship with winter, where the cold arrives early and stays late and shapes the rhythms of daily life with a thoroughness that people who have not lived in such places sometimes find difficult to imagine. The village had perhaps 40 families. Everyone knew everyone. The winters were long, and the firewood was carefully managed, and the lamplights in the windows were the primary social signals of the season: who was awake, who had guests, who was well, who might need a visit. The family in this story had 4 members: a father and mother in their 50s, a grown son who had returned to the village after years in the city, a grandmother who was 83, and who had lived in this village her entire life and intended, as she put it, to die in it, which she found entirely satisfactory as an intention. In the middle of one November, the lamp went out. This was the family's main lamp, the one that sat on the table in the central room, the one that had been in the family for 3 generations, a simple iron lamp that burned oil in a small reservoir, and had a wick that the grandmother trimmed that lived in a particular pair of scissors, that lived in a particular drawer for this express purpose. The lamp went out one evening and would not relight. The son checked the oil. The reservoir was full. He checked the wick. The wick was properly trimmed. He tried a different match, and then another. The lamp did not light. They used candles that evening and went to bed, assuming the lamp would be attended to in the morning. In the morning, the son tried again. The lamp still would not light. He assumed the oil had gone bad and went to the village store for fresh oil. He returned, filled the reservoir with the new oil, trimmed the wick again, struck a match. The lamp did not light. The grandmother, who had been watching this from her chair near the stove, suggested that perhaps the wick needed to be replaced entirely. The son walked to the neighboring farm and returned with new wick material. He replaced the wick with patience and care, filled the reservoir with the new oil, trimmed the new wick to the appropriate length, struck a match. The lamp sat on the table, unlit. The father now became involved. He examined the lamp with the thoroughness of a man who had spent 40 years solving practical problems. He disassembled it as far as it could be disassembled, cleaned each component, checked for damage or corrosion, reassembled it carefully, refilled the oil, fitted the new wick, and attempted, with some ceremony, to light it. The lamp sat on the table, unlit. They decided, after a family discussion, that the lamp itself must be defective. The son volunteered to take it to the craftsman in the next village who worked with metal. A day's walk away, he wrapped the lamp carefully, packed a bag, and set out the following morning. The grandmother watched him go from the window. She had not offered her opinion during the family discussion. She waited until she and the mother were alone in the house with the candles and the cold. Then she said, "The lamp drawer." The mother looked at her. "What?" "The drawer," the grandmother said. "The scissors drawer. Open it." The mother crossed the room and opened the small drawer where the trimming scissors lived. Inside, beside the scissors, was a box of matches. This was not unusual. The matches always lived in the scissor drawer, along with a spare wick and a small funnel for filling the oil. The grandmother said, "Look underneath." The mother lifted the small box of matches. Beneath it, laid flat in the bottom of the drawer, was the lamp's igniter, the small mechanical device that, when the lamp was assembled correctly, created the spark to light the wick without a match. The son had replaced the wick and the oil and disassembled and reassembled the lamp, and everything had been correct except this one thing, which had been in the drawer the whole time. The mother stood holding it. "I put it there," the grandmother said, 30 years ago, when the lamp was new, so it would not be lost. And then I forgot I had put it there, and so did everyone else." The mother fitted the igniter back into the lamp. She filled the oil. She trimmed the wick. She lit the lamp on the first try. The light filled the central room in the particular way of oil lamps, which is softer and more forgiving than electric light, the kind of light that makes the room feel like itself. The son returned the following day from the craftsman in the next village, who had found nothing wrong with the lamp. They told him what had happened. He laughed, the particular laugh of someone who has walked 2 days for a problem that had a much simpler solution. Then he sat down at the table in the light of the lamp and laughed some more. The grandmother, from her chair near the stove, watched the lamp. It had been in this family for 3 generations. It had sat on this table through illness and recovery, through weddings and funerals, through the long, dark winters when the light it cast was the primary evidence that warmth was possible. The lamp had not gone out because something was broken. The lamp had gone out because something had been mislaid, something small, something that had been carefully stored away for safekeeping so long ago that everyone had forgotten it was there, and the lamp had been sitting on the table, full of oil, with a perfect wick, waiting for nothing more than the return of what it had always had. The grandmother looked at the light for a long time that evening. She found it useful in the way that 83 years of living had taught her to find certain things useful. She found it useful because of what it said about what it took to bring the light back. Not a craftsman, not new parts, not the walk to the next village, only the opening of a drawer and the finding of a thing that had been there all along, set aside long ago by a careful hand that knew it would be needed eventually, and put it somewhere safe, and then, as happens with all carefully stored things, forgot it was there. The light had always been in the lamp. It had only needed the small thing returned to it, the thing it had always had, the thing that was its own. Let us pause here for a moment. The light in you has not gone out. It is not broken. It does not need a craftsman in the next village. Perhaps something small has been mislaid, set aside long ago for safekeeping in a drawer you have not recently opened. Perhaps the wandering heart needs only this, the opening of a drawer, the finding of a thing that has always been there. The lamp is full. The wick is ready. When you are ready, we will continue together. 5 stories, 5 journeys, 1 discovery found at the end of each one, and in every case, the discovery was that the end was not where the discovery lived. Brother Kiran, who ran through the monastery for 14 years, bringing light to everyone around him, and found, in the stillness of the main hall, in the warmth of a lamp he had always carried light from, but never sat beside for his own sake, that the light was his, that it had always been his, that the carrying of it to others was generous and necessary and true, but the light itself was not borrowed from any central source. It was already in him. The lantern was already lit. Priya, who walked toward the sacred mountain 11 times over 11 years, and found on the 4th day of her 11th walk, sitting on the side of a grey path, with nowhere particular to be, that the arrival she had been walking toward was not at the mountain. The mountain had been where she went to be quiet enough to feel it. The feeling was hers. It had traveled with her through all 11 journeys, available at every rest stop and every grey morning, waiting for her to stop walking long enough to notice. Suyon, who climbed to a high lake to find a wise woman and found instead her own reflection, and recognized in the looking something she had been searching for in the faces of teachers and the words of traditions and the assembled goodness of a carefully tended life. What you were looking for was always looking back. Rio, who traveled for 15 years and visited every teacher he could find, and came home to find the dust in his apartment window lit up exactly as it had been on the Tuesday the question first arrived, and understood that all the traveling had been necessary, not because the answer was in any of the places he had been, but because the traveling had taught him how to adjust the light, how to see what had been present always in every room he had ever stood in. The family who searched the whole village for what was wrong with their lamp and found in a drawer the small thing that had been carefully stored away 30 years ago and simply forgotten. The lamp had always had everything it needed. It only needed the returning of what was its own. What the wandering heart is looking for is not in any outward direction. It is not in the next teacher or the better practice or the longer retreat or the tradition that has not yet been tried. It is not waiting to be earned or achieved or arrived at after a sufficient period of effort. It is the thing stored away long ago in a drawer for safekeeping. The thing set aside so carefully that we forgot we had it. The light that has been burning in the center of us since before the searching began. The wandering heart comes home not by traveling to the right place. It comes home by stopping in whatever place it is and looking at what has always been here, at what has always been looking back. Let us come now to rest. The body knows how. It has been doing this every night for your entire life, without instruction, without a practice, without the right conditions or the right preparation. It breathes itself down towards sleep with a reliability that is, when you consider it, extraordinary, a system of such completeness that it requires nothing from you except the permission to proceed. You can give it that permission now. The breath is already moving. You do not need to manage it or improve it or breathe in any particular direction. Only perhaps notice it, the small rise and fall, the warmth of the exhale, the brief pause at the end of each breath before the next one begins, that small interval, that rest between the breaths that exists in you as naturally as the breathing itself. The thoughts that come, the day's inventory, the calculations, the names and faces and unfinished things can be met tonight the way Rio met the dust in the window, with a kind of recognition. Ah, there it is, moving in patterns too complex to follow. Present the way it is always present, not requiring action, not requiring resolution, only present. You have been looking tonight at the searching, at all the ways a person looks for something that is already here. At Chiron in the hall and Priya on the path and Suyeon at the lake and Royo by the window and the family with the lamp in the drawer. All the searching, all the journeys, all the arrivals that were, in the end, returns. The lantern in you is already lit. Not will be lit. Not could be lit under better circumstances. Already, right now, burning with the quiet steadiness of something that does not need permission or conditions or the right practice, only to be noticed. You are home. You have always been home. The wandering heart has come to rest, tonight, in the only place it was ever going. This room, this breath, this moment, already arrived. Thank you for traveling with us tonight, through all those long journeys that turned out to be so short. Whatever searching brought you here, it brought you somewhere good, to a still room, to a quiet breath, to the particular rest of knowing that what you are looking for is not in any direction except this one. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Quiet Lotus.